Hey, what's up? Welcome back, guys. Vinyl friends, new subscribers, thanks for joining up. Guys that have been checking out the videos for a while, nice to see you again. Got a few new things to show you today. Haven't been buying a whole lot since my last video where I had the record fair finds, but got a couple of things. There's another record fair coming up in a couple of weeks, and I've got kind of a few little mail order things coming in. But I've been enjoying a bit of a downtime since my last video and just spinning some stuff from the shelves. So I'll show you quickly a couple of those things. I've showed some Prince Lincoln before. Been on kind of a kick with him, so I had to spin another one. This is called Rootsman Blues. It's from 1983. Gatefold. This is on the Target label, UK. This was his last album until 1996. He kind of backed away from the music industry and concentrated more on his food shop business in London. And actually put out one more album in 96 and then passed away a few years later. Fishman, you inspired this one. Had to dig this out again. Shuggy Otis, introducing. Or here comes, rather. Great blues, bit of psych in there. You showed that in one of your videos. Black Ivory. Baby, won't you change your mind? Some Sweet Soul out of Harlem. Perception label. It's like 1972. Still looking for their debut album, which is supposed to be one to really check for. Afro Blues Quintet +1. Introducing. Kind of a bit of on the cocktail jazz side with kind of a Latin percussion, Latin overtones. A mixed African American and Latino group. Early 60s for that one. And I got a couple of mail order things in from all the way from the UK. Now the Pressure Sounds label, I think I've mentioned them before. They've been going since the 1990s. I think, Adrian Sherwood from On You Sound, the great producer, kind of reggae industrial producer. He helped start them up, and they're still going strong. They're well into their 80 LP releases right now. I got two from prolific producer Bunny Striker Lee that they put out recently. This one is called Full Up. This is his early reggae productions, 1968 to 1972, with instrumentals by his group, the Bunny Lee All Stars, which includes a young Aston and Carlton Barrett on bass and drums, respectively. They would later go on to join Lee Perry's Upsetters, and from there, Bob Marley kind of stole them for his group, the Wailers, and they became the nucleus of the group that took him to international stardom. But here, this is a kind of late rock steady era, going into the reggae era. The beat kind of hadn't settled into any definitive sound or pattern, so you've got a bit of soul, you got some instrumentals, you've got some kind of early DJs, just a mix of styles. They were experimenting, seeing what would work. The beat hadn't kind of settled into any formula yet. Bunny Lee, very prolific producer. They call him Striker. This is his nickname because he had so many hit singles. He kind of started up in this era. He was one of the first producers in Jamaica to really develop it as a business. He would go to England and really develop a lot of contacts with labels and people over there to promote his records. And just very well connected, very charismatic guy from what I've heard. Just very prolific producer. So this is some of his early stuff. And he would go on to even greater success later in the 70s. Kind of mid-70s was pretty well his heyday, which is an era covered on this next release called Next Cut. Now this is a slightly different themed release. This is, again, it's from a few years later, kind of mid-70s. He pioneered a style called flying cymbals, which was just more emphasis on the hi-hat beat of the drums. And you've got Johnny Clark, Linval Thompson, Prince Jammy on here, various other artists. And this is kind of a mix of dub plates and rare and unreleased songs. Now, dub plates were 10-inch acetate discs that they would record in Jamaica for exclusive use on sound systems. They were never really intended to be heard by the public. They would have a different mix that would be released, say, on a 7-inch 45. And but they would create these exclusive mixes with kind of a different emphasis, a more dramatic emphasis on some of the elements of the song for use on the sound systems, which a sound system is kind of like a mobile disco. They would have these massive speakers and amps, and in Jamaica they would have these dances that would be mainly held outdoors or in a yard somewhere. In the UK, the phenomenon traveled over there, but would be held more in like a club or a hall. So if you had the right connections, you would be able to get one of these exclusive dub plate mixes from a producer of the stature of Bunny Lee. And moving on, the latest Pressure Sounds release. This is Pressure Sounds 89th full-length release, and it's kind of a similar mix of unreleased mixes, dub plates, but focusing on the iconic producer Lee Scratch Perry and the Upsetters, which he's probably a little more well known. He's worked with the Beastie Boys, among others. There's the back. And these are all from his classic Black Ark years, except for one or two earlier tracks. There's actually a dub plate mix of Bob Marley and the Wailers' Sun is Shining, which was one of the early tunes that he produced for them, kind of in a pivotal period in their recording career before they signed with Island and became international stars. So very excellent collection of tunes on there. Artists like Augustus Pablo, not too many more well-known names, George Faith, the Upsetters, his house band, which, as I said, included Carlton and Aston Barrett, the two brothers that Bob Marley basically permanently borrowed for his own band. And I had a few kind of cheap bin record store finds. This first one is kind of my contribution to the Halloween covers. I apologize to anybody with like a sensitive disposition. Rob from Boston, you and I have talked about this in the comments, so I'll try and cover this up. It's of course Herbie Man, Push Push, on the Atlantic label, green and red. I guess this is a later pressing. It's a gatefold, but never had this one. Saw it, decided to go for it. He's kind of cheesy, but I usually like his records, and he's always got some killer personnel on here. He's got Dwayne Allman, Cornell Dupree, Bernard Purdie, and you just can't mess with his backup players. But sound quality actually kind of wimpy on that one. I might hold out for an earlier pressing if I come across one. Also got Donovan, A Gift from a Flower to a Garden, the box set. Never had this one, never seen it for cheap, but these few record store ones I got really less, about $4 each, I think. One of the two records in that Donovan set I think I have in the single LPs that were released. And these next two, Randy, Dead Wax 66, I'm sure you're going to know these. Gypsy, self-titled, this is 1970 I think. If I see anything kind of 60s or psych in the cheap bins, I'll always grab it. And with songs like The Third Eye on here, and this cover art with all the astrological symbols, I'm sure that was going to fit, and it is indeed. These guys were from Minnesota, St. Paul, Minneapolis area, and they actually moved to California, had a regular gig at the Whiskey, and put out this album. So very nice, very nice harmonies on here. Psych, of course, but yeah, great album. And one more, Circus Maximus, another Psych one. This is featuring Jerry Jeff Walker, who was later went on to become a solo performer in kind of an alt country style. Again, very excellent psych album. It's on Vanguard. And a couple of thrift finds. MC 900 Foot Jesus. Truth is Out of Style. I remember that one when it came out. Used to have the video on Much Music all the time. Another thrift one, Mantronics. This is UK pressing. It's two 12-inch singles. Who Is It? And Ladies, backed with Bassline on the other record. Perfect condition. Don't see Mantronics around too much. Kind of a hip-hop, early club, house producer. Very nice stuff. Peebo Bryson, Reaching for the Sky. I think this is his second LP from 1978. It's a CBC radio copy. There was a few of these in the thrift store. Some kind of like soft rock, pop kind of things, but a few R&B ones as well. See the CBC label on there. And there was a few R&B ones, kind of more in the smooth, very soft style, which I don't really go for a whole lot, but decided to give that one a try, and actually really enjoyed that one. Of course, he's known for his duets with people like Roberta Flack, I think, but he gets a few more danceable moments in that one too. Another one at the same time, Denise Williams, Songbird. That's her second LP from 1977. I have her first one called This Is Niecy. Of course, a few years later, she hit big on the Footloose soundtrack. Let's hear it for the boy. Andre Crouch and the Disciples, Take the Message Everywhere. Some gospel here. It's on the Light label. I always pick these guys up when I see them. I actually had this one before. This was an upgrade copy. I actually did a little switch because the cover on this one was in better condition than mine, but the copy I had, the vinyl, was in better condition. So if you don't know these guys, great gospel, fabulous singing and harmonies, and mixes in some soul and funk with his gospel, which is the way I like it. And the last one for today, this was another thrift find. This was a blind buy. I told you a couple of videos back I went to this thrift store that where I found a bunch of jazz stuff. Like there was Ramsey Lewis and some Hugh Masekela. There's about 8 or 10 albums, I think. And it was in a thrift store I hit sometimes that's usually really bad. I mean, really bad. The Barbra Streisands and James Last kind of thing you always see in the thrift stores. That's the good stuff in this place, believe me. But I stumbled on this one day. And the cover is kind of nondescript. It could be any one of the number of kind of religious or easy listening albums you normally see there. But looking on the back, you see there, kind of looks more like they might be R&B or funk or something. And then I'm looking at the players on here, and some of the names are starting to look pretty familiar. And then I see Glenn Ricketts on lead vocals and guitar, which I know him. He's a solo reggae performer, still performing to this day. So I'm thinking, hey, maybe this is some Canadian reggae. So I picked it up, got it home. And it's one of those records where you end up doing some research and finding out all about it and all the connections. And yeah, it's a kind of obscure Toronto soul and funk group with a very strong reggae connection. It's on CBS. But this band was actually formed in Jamaica, and when they reformed kind of in Canada, the core of the group was two brothers, Jamaican-Canadian brothers, Carl and Rupert Harvey. Those are their names. Now, Carl Harvey was went on to have a pretty distinguished career in music and reggae in particular, and rock. He did his own solo recordings in between playing with these guys. As lead guitarist, he would go back to Jamaica and record with Bunny Lee, which I showed him a few albums back, and record in his house band, The Aggravators, and racked up many album credits with him. Worked with Jackie Matu quite a bit. They were friends. And in between, he recorded with these guys, put this album out in 1976. This is soul and funk, as I said. slight gospel influence, which kind of gives me a clue as to why it ended up in this particular thrift store, which is religious based, but nothing really overt. But some great funk and soul on here. And Carl went on to, in the early 80s, he joined Toots and the Maytals band and has continued with them ever since. He's appeared on all of their albums and performed with all the top names in the rock world. Appeared on the Grammy-winning True Love album in 2004, I think. And he also produced Hands Up by Sway. That kind of pop reggae song was a big worldwide hit in the late 80s. I guess it was kind of used in the Club Med commercial, I think is where I remember seeing it from. And the other brother in the group, Rupert Harvey, also had his own distinguished career. He put out 2 albums in more of a reggae, jazz, funk style as OGG. This one is called The Shadow. I had this one for a while. This is from 1979 on Ultra Records. And he also had one called Halfway Home. This is also on Ultra from 1980. Just thought I'd show these. Had those ones for a while. And after that, he joined the group Messenger, which was a long-running and successful Toronto reggae group. And it's gone back to, I think he got into some acting. He appeared in the movie Cocktail or something I read. So very interesting bit of history there. Some rare slice of Toronto funk and soul and reggae that I didn't know about before. So it's just one of those thrift store records that opens up all these doors, and it's kind of fun researching into this stuff. So one more thing to show you, a CD listening recent, Wayne McGee and the Sounds of Joy. It's on Light in the Attic, reissue, obviously. It's a rare early 70s reggae, jazz, or funk, soul album from Toronto area again. This came out early 70s. The original LP, almost the entire stock was destroyed in a fire. So very, very rare. And then years later, of course, the usual story, it gets discovered by crate diggers and reissues come out. I'm still trying to track down a LP copy of this. I might have to order that one. Apparently, I think Light in the Attic reissued a second pressing of it for Record Store Day or something this year. But I got this CD direct from the guy who put it out for them. He's my buddy, Kevin Cipriano. Okay guys, that's it for today. I've got a few mail order things that just arrived, but I kind of want to give them a spin and get some thoughts together before I share it with you. And as I said, there'll be a record fair coming up pretty soon. So thanks for sticking it out for 18 minutes, and I'll see you guys soon. Cheers.